Hi guys, so I'm here with my May reading wrap up. I managed to read 9 books in May. I'm really happy with how much I got read. Not quite as much as last month, but I think I enjoyed for the most part what I read this month. So the first 2 books that I read this month, so the first one was The Bourbon Kings by J.R. Ward and The Angel's Share by J.R. Ward. This is book 1 and book 2 in her Bourbon Kings series. I realised that I'd had this book on my shelf for a really long time and not read it, so I decided to pick it up, and then picked up the second book. It's sort of a contemporary series by her, and it's about this big family in the south of America that are minted. Basically they've got family money through making bourbon, and then there's a lot of secrets in the family. It kind of reminds me a little bit like Dallas, and like general like soap opera type things. A lot of stuff comes to light. Really, like, it's not an action packed book, but it's all about like the family dynamics and the family drama. So I enjoyed the first one enough to move on to the second book, and it's even at the end of this one you still have a lot of questions about what's happened, and there's lots of money involved, affairs, and yeah. So I haven't finished that series yet, but I did enjoy them. I gave them both sort of 3.5 out of 5. Not like my most favourite book ever, but I did enjoy it. The next 2 books that I read was The Ocean Between and The Girl in the Closet. And to be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about these. Like, they were quite quick reads, but they weren't the best. They're sort of contemporary romance type books, but and like basically it's these young women that have quite tragic pasts. Like in the first one, I can't remember the characters' names. The girl moved from South Africa to America to get away from a really abusive mum. And her roommate there is an undercover cop, and like they fall for each other, etc. And then the second one, the girl Birdie was abused when she was young by her father. He neglected her, would lock her in a closet, not feed her, and then he is released from prison, and then he's haunting her again. So they were okay. I think with a little bit of work they could have been really good, but there was just something about them that didn't quite hit the mark for me, but they were okay. The next book that I read was The Blue Castle by Ellen Montgomery, the same author that wrote Anne of Green Gables. I decided to pick this one up because I didn't know an awful lot about it, so I picked it up and I really enjoyed it. It's about a slightly older heroine than Ellen Montgomery normally writes about, and this young woman has basically been downtrodden by her family her whole life. She's like, poor Valancy, she's not pretty enough, she's not clever enough, she's never going to be married, so she just has a life of drudgery. And then she gets some news that maybe she might not have very long to live, and it changes her whole outlook. She's no longer afraid to speak her mind. All these family members that put her down with words and make her the butt of their jokes, suddenly she stands up for herself, and her whole family thinks she's gone completely mad. They literally think she needs to be admitted to an asylum. But when this happens to her and she lets go of all these worries and things, she then opens doors to a whole new life for herself, and it was so fun. It really did bring a smile to my face when I read this book, so I absolutely loved this. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5. The next book that I read was one that I just got off NetGalley, and it was called Right Next Door. Didn't really enjoy this one, if I'm honest. I gave it like 1.5 out of 5. It's supposed to be sort of like a quick like dirty read, but it really just fell completely flat, and I wouldn't ever bother recommending it or reading anything by this author again. It was just blah, to be honest. So the next book that I read was Dance With Me by Kristen Probin. Proby, God, I can't say her name right. This is the next book in her like With Me in Seattle series, and I really enjoyed this. I was really looking forward to it coming out. We kind of got a sneak peek of this book in the previous book, because this book is about Starla and Levi, and you see like a little interaction between them in the previous book. And I really enjoyed this. You know, Starla is this, you know, really famous sort of pop star, and Levi is a policeman, and like on paper they shouldn't really work, but they really do, and it was just a really sweet romance, and I really enjoyed this one. As you guys know, I really enjoy Kristen Proby's books, so this one was a 4 out of 5 star read for me. And then the next two books that I read, or the last two books I should say, that I read in May, the first one being After, and the second one being After We Collided, so books 1 and book 2 in the After series. They are quite chunky books. And I was vlogging, I think, when I was reading these, I think, because if I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about these two books so far. I picked up After on a bit of a whim, because this has been on my bookshelf since it came out, and I don't know why, I've just never ever picked it up. And then there's been a movie made about it. Haven't watched it yet, so I thought, you know, maybe I should read it. So I picked it up, and it's one of those books that I couldn't put it down. I'm not gonna lie, like I was really, like, when I picked it up I was reading pages and pages at a time. Real chunks of the book, like considering how big it is, I got it read quite quickly. But as I'm reading it, I'm like, I don't think I should be liking this, like, and then I'll be like, but I can't put it down. It's kind of like a car crash, like you can't look away. It's kind of like that, because so much of the behavior in this book is really problematic. Both Hardin and Tessa in this book have issues coming out the wazoo. Like literally, the characters in this are just mental, like absolutely mental. It's really not a relationship you want to emulate in any way whatsoever. There's a lot of literary references to couples throughout, you know, the classics like Heathcliff and Cathy, Great Gatsby, Pride and Prejudice, and, you know, don't get me wrong, a lot of those, like Wuthering Heights, you know, that is a disaster of a romance novel. Like, so I get it, like, not every romance novel has to be. But I just think if there are teenage girls reading this at a very, you know, young and impressionable age, I just don't think, like, they don't want to be emulating or wanting this kind of relationship. It was kind of enjoyable to read in a way, but in another way it was exhausting, because there is so much back and forth, up and down. It's like a friggin' roller coaster. Like literally on the same page they can be absolutely fine, and then 2 paragraphs later, like, they're kicking off at each other, and there is a lot of that. But at the same time, like, something about it invested me in it enough to move on to the second book. And again, the second book is a lot like the first. I don't 100% know if it needs to be this big, if I'm honest, because there is a lot of repetition in the book. You know, this back and forth, arguing, not arguing, forgiving, then arguing again. And I mean, again, I finished the book, but part of me is just like, does it need to be that long? Like, I don't know. And again, like, I gave them both sort of the 4 out of 5-ish mark, but I think that was just because, you know, of the not being able to put it down factor. I mean, I started reading After We Collided on the coach on the way to London, and I'd read about 20% of the book on the coach ride. And I mean, that's quite a significant amount to have, you know, got read on a coach journey of a book that size. So I don't know, like, it's very hard. Like, will I continue the series? Yes, I've picked up the other books, but I don't know, like, if they are all like that the whole way through, like, does it need to be like a 4 or 5 book series? Could it not just have been one massive book and call it a day? Like, I don't know. So like I said, very undecided, but I did enjoy actually reading them, but part of me is like, do I like it? Do I not? Like, I don't know. I really don't know. So yeah, there we have it. That's all the books that I read for May, guys. If you've read any of these books, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Happy reading.